It's truly astonishing how swiftly an entire existence can unravel. 17 years of marriage, extinguished in less than 10 minutes. I stood there, rooted in the entryway of our home, my home, the one I'd painstakingly transformed over countless years, watching Clarissa, my wife, erupt in laughter as if I were nothing more than a pathetic jest. "Just leave," she declared, her voice a chilling blade, honed by months of silent anticipation. She barely graced me with a glance. Her new paramour, Reed, stood smugly by her side, a triumphant sneer plastered across his face, as if he'd just claimed some grand prize. He audaciously kicked off his muddy shoes, casually flinging them onto the coffee table I had crafted with my own hands years before. The wood, once pristine, now bore the ugly scars of his insolent disrespect, and a searing knot tightened in my chest. Yet I uttered not a single word. What was there to say? Her decision was resolute, and I would not stoop to begging. By the way, please like and subscribe if you enjoy stories like this. I turned my back on them and ascended the stairs to her bedroom. The lingering scent of her perfume, that familiar floral fragrance she'd worn since our earliest days, still clung to the air. From the closet, I retrieved my old black suitcase, its zippers stubbornly broken, a repair I'd perpetually postponed. Methodically, I began to fold my clothes, shirts first, then trousers, then socks. Each crease was meticulously sharpened, each stack flawlessly aligned. This wasn't about delaying the inevitable. It was about occupying my hands, preventing them from violently striking something downstairs. Their voices, their laughter drifted up to me. Reed's was particularly grating. Loud, presumptuous, as if he already owned the very air he breathed. "Nice house," I overheard him remark. "Could use some updating, though." Updating? As if he possessed any right to critique what I had built, what I had poured my very essence into. I zipped the suitcase shut and descended the stairs. Clarissa now leaned against the kitchen counter, idly swirling a glass of wine, my wine, from the very bottle I'd purchased for our anniversary just last month. She didn't even acknowledge my presence as I passed. Reed lay sprawled across the sofa, idly flicking through TV channels, as if he'd resided there his entire life. I paused at the front door, my hand resting on the cool doorknob, taking one last lingering look around, the photographs adorning the wall, us on the beach, us at her cousin's wedding, stared back, ghostly apparitions of a life now shattered. 17 years of shared memories, all discarded for this man. I could have unleashed a torrent of rage, demanded an explanation, but what purpose would it serve? She had already checked out, emotionally departed. So I opened the door and stepped into the night. The air was cool, the silence broken only by the persistent hum of crickets. I tossed my suitcase into the bed of my truck, an old pickup I'd faithfully maintained since before our wedding day. The engine sputtered to life, and I pulled out of the driveway without a backward glance. My hands clamped tightly around the steering wheel, knuckles stark white. Clarissa believed she had humiliated me, that she had claimed some grand victory by casting me aside like that. She had no earthly idea who I truly was, no inkling of what was about to unfold. As I drove, watching the house shrink in my rearview mirror, something shifted within me. Not anger, not anymore. It was something calmer, something sharper. She wanted me gone? Fine. I would leave. But this was far from over. Not by a long shot. A few miles down the road, I pulled into a gas station, parking beneath the flickering lights. My phone, a heavy weight in my pocket, emerged. I opened my contacts, scrolling to a number saved only as command. My thumb hovered for a second, then I typed a swift message. Initiate. Subject confirmed. Proceeding as planned. I hit send and leaned back in the seat, waiting. The reply was instantaneous. All teams ready. Phase 1 begins 0900. I read it twice, letting the words sink in. 17 years of pretending, of living a lie, and now it was all about to unravel. Clarissa believed she'd seen the last of me. She thought I was merely some dullard she could casually discard. She didn't know the truth. Not yet. I restarted the truck and drove toward the city, my mind a tempest of thoughts, yet my hands remained steady. I had spent years building a life with her, playing the role she expected. The quiet husband, the man who effortlessly fixed leaky sinks and paid bills on time. She never questioned my late nights, my sudden business trips, the locked drawer in my office she was forbidden to touch. She cared too little to wonder, and perhaps that was the true core of the problem. Tonight I wasn't just leaving the house. I was abandoning the very lie I had lived for her. The gas station lights receded behind me as I merged onto the highway, the road stretching out, dark and desolate. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow she would discover precisely what she had so carelessly thrown away. And as for me, I would finally cease pretending. I drove through the night, the highway lights blurring into streaks of yellow paint. My truck's engine rumbled beneath me, a familiar grounding sound amidst the whirlwind of my thoughts. Clarissa's words echoed endlessly in my mind. No divorce papers needed. Just leave. The way she laughed as if I were nothing stung more than I cared to admit. 17 years and she tossed me aside like a worn-out pair of shoes. Reed's smug face flickered in my memory, his dirty feet defiling my coffee table, his voice bouncing off the walls of my home as if he belonged there. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, my knuckles whitening once more, but I refused to wallow in it. Not now. There was far too much to do. I glanced at my phone on the passenger seat, the screen still illuminated from the message I'd sent. Initiate, subject confirmed, proceeding as planned. The reply from command glowed back at me. All teams ready. Phase 1 begins 0900. It was real now. No turning back. I had always known this day might arrive, but I never envisioned it unfolding like this. My own wife, unwittingly handing me the perfect opening by kicking me out. She assumed I was some mundane accountant trapped in a cubicle crunching numbers for the government. I let her believe it. It was simpler that way, safer too. She didn't need to know about the clandestine meetings, the classified files, the times I returned home with bruises I attributed to clumsy falls down the stairs. She never pressed for details, never cared enough to ask. The road ahead stretched out, dark and hushed, save for the fleeting headlights of an occasional passing car. After about an hour, I exited the highway, heading toward a location I hadn't visited in months. A safe house nestled deep within the woods outside the city. The Bureau called it a black safe, an off-the-grid sanctuary where agents like me could lie low when circumstances turned messy. The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I pulled up to the cabin. It was unremarkable, a modest wooden shack with a sagging porch and a rusty mailbox. Perfect cover. I grabbed my suitcase and stepped out, the cool night air a bracing slap to my face. The crickets chirped loudly here, a steady drone that mercifully silenced the cacophony in my head. Inside, the cabin was Spartan. A couch, a table, a single lamp flickering with a weak bulb. No photographs, no personal touches, just the bare necessities. I dropped my bag by the door and checked my watch. It was just past midnight. 9 hours until Phase 1. I retrieved my phone again, double-checking the signal. Full bars, good. I needed to remain connected. Then I sank onto the couch, leaning my head back against the worn cushions. My eyes drifted to the ceiling, tracing the faint cracks in the wood. This wasn't how I'd envisioned my life at 45. Hiding out in a safe house, my marriage in ruins, my wife shacked up with some smarmy opportunist. But perhaps this was better, cleaner. Clarissa never truly knew what I did. I told her I worked for the Treasury Department, some drab desk job tracking budgets and tax forms. It wasn't an outright lie, merely vague enough to deter her curiosity. She'd roll her eyes when I mentioned work, muttering about how dull it sounded. Spreadsheets and coffee stains, she'd say, laughing. I'd laugh along, playing the part. She didn't know about the encrypted emails, the burner phones, the times I'd sat for hours in unmarked vans, monitoring targets through binoculars. She didn't know I'd spent the last 3 years meticulously tracking a man just like Reed, painstakingly piecing together his labyrinthine, dirty money schemes, all while she was preoccupied with dinner plans and scrolling through her phone. And she certainly didn't know that her soulmate was the very key to it all. I rose and paced the small room, my boots thudding softly against the floorboards. The safe house possessed a tiny kitchen in the corner, a sink, a stove, a refrigerator that hummed far too loudly. I opened it, found a can of soda, cracked it open, and took a long, slow sip. The cold fizz offered a small measure of calm. I thought about tomorrow, 9 a.m., when the teams would move in. I could already picture it, the black SUVs rolling up, the agents pounding on the door, Clarissa's sleepy confusion morphing into stark panic. She would have no idea what had hit her. Neither would Reed. I almost smiled at the thought. Almost. Back on the couch, I retrieved a small notebook from my suitcase. It was battered, its leather cover scratched and worn. Inside were notes I'd meticulously kept over the years. Codes, dates, names, nothing too specific, just enough to jog my memory if needed. I flipped to a page near the back where I'd scrawled RV months ago, Reed Vallon. I'd been watching him long before Clarissa ever brought him home, long before she decided he was her convenient exit from our marriage. I tapped the page with my finger, staring at his initials. She thought she'd humiliated me tonight, thought she'd won, but she didn't know the game had already begun and I was the one holding all the cards. I set the notebook down and checked my phone again. No new messages. Good, everything was on track. I leaned back, closing my eyes for a moment. The safe house was quiet, save for the persistent hum of the refrigerator and the crickets outside. Tomorrow. It would all kick off tomorrow. Clarissa would see a side of me she'd never imagined. I wasn't just the man she'd cast out. I was the man who had been waiting for this moment, planning it, building it. And now, it was here. I finished the soda, crushed the can in my hand, and tossed it into the trash. Then I lay down on the couch, my arm tucked beneath my head. Sleep wouldn't come easily tonight, but I didn't care. I had work to do, and for the first time in years I felt truly alive. The safe house was cold when I awoke, a deep chill that permeated my bones and made me yearn for an extra jacket. I'd barely slept, perhaps a couple of hours on that lumpy couch, my mind too wired to truly shut down. The clock on my phone read 6:47 a.m., just over 2 hours until Phase 1. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, the faint light of dawn creeping through the cabin's dusty blinds. My suitcase remained by the door where I'd left it, my notebook resting on the table, open to Reed's initials, RV. Today was the day he'd fall, and Clarissa, whether she knew it or not, would fall with him. I stood and stretched, my back cracking from the stiff cushions. The safe house smelled of old wood and damp air, but it was home for now. I walked to the tiny kitchen, filled a chipped mug with water from the sink, and drank it down quickly. No coffee here, but I didn't need it. Adrenaline was already coursing through me, sharp and steady. I grabbed my phone and checked for updates. A new message from command. Teams in position. Rendezvous U-800, Black Safe confirmed secure. Good. Everything was moving like clockwork. I replied with a quick copy en route. Then I pulled on my boots, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The morning air was crisp, the woods around the cabins silent save for a few chirping birds. My truck sat where I'd parked it, dew clinging to the windshield. I climbed in, started the engine, and let it warm up while I wiped the glass clear with my sleeve. The drive to the rendezvous point wasn't far, about 20 minutes to a warehouse on the edge of town, another off-the-books location the Bureau maintained. I pulled onto the gravel road, my tires crunching loudly in the stillness. My mind drifted back to last night. Clarissa's laughter, Reed's smug grin. I'd spent 17 years with her, building a life, a home, and she'd discarded it all without a second thought. But that wasn't what kept me awake. It was the crushing irony of it all. Her new boyfriend wasn't just some random guy, he was my target. You see, I'd been working Reed Vallon's case for 3 years. 3 years of late nights, fabricated identities, and sifting through financial records so convoluted they'd make your head spin. On paper, he was a hedge fund manager. Fancy suits, slick hair, the kind of man who boasted about his yacht at parties. But beneath that veneer, he was dirty, laundering millions through offshore art deals and crypto scams, moving illicit cash for some truly unsavory individuals. I'd tracked him across state lines, tapped his calls, watched his every move. And then 6 months ago, Clarissa brought him home. "This is Reed," she'd chirped, all smiles as if she'd struck gold. My soulmate. I'd nearly choked on my beer. Soulmate? He was my mark. I didn't tell her, of course. I couldn't. My job, my real job, depended on absolute secrecy. She thought I was just some government pencil pusher, and I let her. It was safer that way. The less she knew, the less she could inadvertently compromise. But I never imagined she'd become so deeply entangled in it. I pulled into the warehouse lot at 7:58 a.m., parking beside a row of black SUVs. Agent Rowan was already there, leaning against his vehicle, a cigarette dangling from his lips. He'd been my partner for 8 years, a wiry guy with a buzz cut and a dry, sardonic sense of humor. "Morning, sunshine," he greeted, flicking ash onto the ground. "Rough night?" I shrugged. You could say that. Inside the warehouse, Director Keller awaited us. He was older, with graying hair and piercing eyes, the kind of man who never wasted a single word. A table was set up, laden with laptops, maps, and a formidable stack of files. Reed's life on paper. "You sure about this?" Keller asked, looking at me over his glasses. "She's your wife." "Was," I corrected. "She made her choice." He nodded, no judgment, just an acknowledgement of the facts. Rowan clapped me on the shoulder. "Let's bury this bastard," he said, a grin spreading across his face. I didn't return the smile, but I felt it, the surge of anticipation. This wasn't just about Reed anymore. It was personal. We reviewed the plan one last time. Surveillance teams were already in position around the house, poised to move at 9 a.m. sharp. Another unit was hitting Reed's office downtown, seizing computers, freezing accounts. The evidence was ironclad. Bank records, wire transfers, even a recorded call where he brazenly bragged about cleaning cash. I'd built this case brick by meticulous brick, and now it was time to tear it all down. Keller handed me a headset. "You're on comms," he said. "I want you on the feed. Call the shots if it goes sideways." I nodded, slipping it on. My heart was steady, my hands calm. This was what I excelled at. I thought about Clarissa again as we loaded up. She'd never witnessed this side of me. The man who could dismantle a criminal empire without batting an eye. To her, I was simply the husband who sometimes forgot to mow the lawn, who worked late and came home quietly. She didn't know about the black safes, the undercover operations, the times I'd faced down men far more dangerous than Reed. And she certainly didn't know that her soulmate was about to drag her into a quagmire she couldn't possibly talk her way out of. I climbed into the van with Rowan, the doors slamming shut behind us. The screens flickered to life, displaying live feeds from the house. Clarissa's car was still in the driveway, Reed's too. They had no idea what was coming. The clock struck 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes to go. I leaned back in my seat, watching the screens, my mind clear. This was my world, hidden, sharp, undeniably real. Clarissa thought she'd humiliated me last night, kicking me out for her shiny new boyfriend. But she didn't know the secrets I'd buried, the life I'd kept meticulously hidden from her. She didn't know that I'd been waiting for this, that Reed's very presence in our house was the final crucial piece I needed. The van rolled out, tires humming against the pavement. Phase 1 was about to begin, and I was ready. The van smelled of stale coffee and metal as we rumbled toward the house, the screens in front of me flickering with live feeds. It was 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes until everything exploded. I adjusted my headset, the static crackling in my ear as Rowan muttered something about traffic. My eyes remained glued to the monitors, two angles of the house I used to call home. The front porch was quiet, the curtains still drawn. Clarissa's car sat in the driveway next to Reed's flashy BMW. They were likely still asleep, entangled in the sheets I had paid for, believing they had won. My stomach twisted, but I forcibly pushed the feeling down. This wasn't about sentiment anymore. This was about the mission. The clock struck 9 a.m. and the radio buzzed to life. Team Alpha position, a voice reported. Team Beta, office site secured, awaiting your go. I took a breath, my voice steady. Go, I commanded. And just like that, it began. On the screen, 3 black SUVs pulled up swiftly, tires screeching. Agents spilled out, vests on, guns ready but held low. They moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. 2 to the front door, 2 around back, 1 on lookout. I watched as Agent Torres, a man I'd trained with years ago, pounded on the door. FBI, search warrant, open up! His voice was loud, sharp, cutting through the morning's quiet. For a second, nothing happened. Then the curtains twitched, and I saw Clarissa's face peek out, her eyes wide and sleepy. She opened the door a crack, still in her robe, her hair disheveled from sleep. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. Torres wasted no time. "FBI, we have a warrant. Step aside." He pushed past her, the team following, and I watched her stumble back, clutching her robe tighter. Reed came stumbling down the stairs a second later, shirtless, his hair wildly askew. "What the hell is this?" he bellowed. But the moment his eyes registered the badges, his face went ashen. He bolted toward the back door, a foolish move. 2 agents were already there, intercepting him before he'd taken 10 steps. I heard the satisfying click of handcuffs through the comms. "Reed Vallon, you're under arrest," one of them stated, rattling off the charges: racketeering, money laundering, fraud. His mouth opened, but no sound escaped. Clarissa was screaming now, her voice shrill on the feed. "What the hell is going on? Somebody tell me." She spun around, eyes wide, watching the agents systematically tearing through the house, ripping open drawers, bagging laptops, flipping cushions. No one answered her. They didn't have to. I watched her sink onto the couch, her hands shaking, her eyes darting frantically. She didn't grasp it yet, but she would soon. On the second screen, the office raid was in full swing. Reed's downtown operation, all glass and steel, swarming with agents. His staff stood frozen as computers were unplugged, files boxed up, accounts locked down. I leaned closer, my pulse steady. This was it, the takedown I'd spent 3 years building. "Office secure," Beta team reported. "Evidence in hand, heading to processing." I nodded, even though they couldn't see me. "Copy," I said. "Alpha status?" Torres's voice returned. "House secure. Subject in custody. Secondary occupant detained for questioning." Secondary occupant? That was Clarissa. I saw her on the feed, an agent standing over her, asking questions she couldn't answer. "I don't know anything," she kept repeating, her voice breaking. "This is my house. You can't do this." But they could. They had the warrant, the overwhelming evidence, the years of work I'd poured into this. She didn't know it was me behind it all. Not yet. Rowan nudged me, pointing at the screen. "She's losing it," he observed, almost laughing. I didn't smile. Watching her crumble wasn't enjoyable. It was simply necessary. The agents discovered a safe in the bedroom, my bedroom, hidden behind a painting I'd hung years ago. They cracked it open, pulling out stacks of cash, a burner phone, some papers I couldn't quite decipher. Reed's stash, no doubt. Clarissa's face went white when she saw it. "That's not mine," she shrieked. "I don't know where that came from." Perhaps she didn't, but it didn't matter. She'd let him in, accepted his lavish gifts, played along. That made her complicit, whether she intended to be or not. The feed showed Reed in handcuffs now, being shoved into the back of an SUV. He was sweating, his cocky grin long gone. "I want my lawyer," he kept repeating, as if that would save him. It wouldn't. We had him cold. Bank records, wiretaps, witnesses. 3 years of my life distilled into this singular moment. I leaned back in the van's chair, the headset pressing against my ear. The house was a chaotic mess now. Furniture overturned, closets emptied. Clarissa sat there, her head in her hands, openly weeping. An agent offered her a tissue, but she didn't take it. She just kept muttering, "This can't be happening." I thought about last night, her laughter, her casual dismissal. She thought she was in control, that she had humiliated me. Now look at her. The radio crackled again. Alpha Team, evidence secured. Moving to transport. I glanced at Rowan. Office hall? I asked. He grinned. Enough to bury him for 20 years, maybe more. I nodded. Good. The screen showed the agents packing up the SUV, pulling out. Clarissa was being led to a car, not cuffed, not yet, but she wasn't free either. Where are you taking me? She asked, her voice small. Station, the agent replied. We've got questions. The van went quiet as the feeds cut off, the operation wrapping up cleanly. Rowan pulled out a pack of gum and offered me a piece. I took it, chewing slowly, the mint sharp on my tongue. You okay? He asked, eyeing me. Yeah, I said. And I was. This wasn't about revenge, not truly. It was about justice, about finishing what I had started. Clarissa didn't know who I was, not after all these years. She'd find out soon enough. The van began moving, heading back to base. I looked out the window, the city slowly awakening around us. Phase 1 was done. The dominoes were falling, and I was the one who'd pushed them. The van rumbled back to the warehouse, the city blurring past in a gray expanse of buildings and morning traffic. I sat there, headset off, the screen before me dark. Rowan was tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, humming an unfamiliar tune. The takedown was complete. Reed in cuffs, the house a scene of disarray. Clarissa hauled off for questioning. My chest felt tight, but not from nerves. It was something else, something heavier. 3 years of relentless work had finally yielded its reward, yet all I could conjure was her face on that feed, confused, scared, tear-streaked. She didn't know it was me, not yet. My phone vibrated in my pocket, jolting me from my thoughts. I pulled it out and saw her name on the screen, Clarissa. A missed call, then another, then a text. What did you do? The all caps, devoid of a question mark, screamed her fury. I stared at it for a long minute, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Rowan glanced over. She's freaking out, huh? He smirked. Let her sweat, I muttered, shoving the phone back into my pocket. But it buzzed again, another call. I ignored it, watching the warehouse come into view as we pulled into the lot. Inside, the team was already unpacking boxes of evidence from the house and office, stacked on tables, agents meticulously sorting through it all. Director Keller waved me over. Clean sweep, he said, his voice gruff but approving. Valon's done. We've got enough to lock him up for decades. I nodded, my eyes scanning the room. Laptops, files, that burner phone from the safe, all laid out like pieces of a complex puzzle I'd spent years solving. What about her? I asked, keeping my tone flat. Keller shrugged. She's in holding, claims she didn't know anything. We'll see. My phone buzzed again, another text. Answer me. I pulled it out this time, staring at her frantic words. She was desperate now, likely sitting in some cold room at the station, wondering how her perfect little plan had so spectacularly imploded. Instead of replying, I opened my camera roll, scrolling to a photo I'd taken months ago during a training drill. Me in full tactical gear, vest, headset, the works, standing next to Rowan, a surveillance monitor visible in the background. You could just make out Clarissa's face on the screen, a still from one of Reed's tapped calls. I hadn't planned to use it like this, but it felt right. I sent it to her. No words, just the image. Let her piece it together. The phone rang again almost instantly, her name flashing, insistent. I let it ring twice before picking up, my voice calm. Yeah? She was breathing hard on the other end, as if she'd been running. What the hell is that picture? She demanded. What did you do? I leaned against the table, watching an agent bag up a stack of Reed's fake invoices. You said no papers were needed, I told her, keeping it simple. Guess you were right. She started to say something, her voice rising, but I hung up before she could finish. The line went dead, and I felt a small but real weight lift off me. Rowan walked over, chewing his gum loudly. She get the memo? He asked. She's getting there. I said, tucking the phone away. He laughed, shaking his head. Man, you're cold. I like it. I didn't respond. Cold wasn't the right word. I wasn't trying to hurt her, not like that. But after 17 years of being invisible to her, of her rolling her eyes at my boring life, I wasn't about to explain myself now. She'd see it all soon enough. Keller called us into a briefing room, a small space with a whiteboard and a few chairs. The screens were back on, showing footage from the house raid, looped on mute. Valon in processing, he said, pointing at a file. Singing already. Trying to cut a deal. I wasn't surprised. Guys like Reed always folded when the cuffs went on. What's he saying? I asked. Keller flipped open the folder. Claims she knew, the wife, says she was in on the accounts, the gifts, trying to pin it on her. My jaw tightened. She didn't, I said, firm. She's clueless, not crooked. Keller raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. We'll dig, see what sticks. I thought about that. Clarissa knowing. She didn't. I lived with her long enough to be sure. She'd taken Reed's money, sure. The jewelry, the car, that villa she'd bragged about. But she thought it was just him showing off. She wasn't smart enough to hide millions, not careful enough to play that game. Yet the evidence was there. $140,000 in gifts traced to her name, all tied to Reed's laundering. The villa in Mykonos wasn't a timeshare, like she told her friends. It was a front. She was in deep, even if she didn't mean to be. My phone buzzed again, another call. I silenced it this time, letting it go to voicemail. I could hear her voice in my head anyway, pleading, yelling, demanding answers. She'd get them, just not from me, not yet. Keller handed me a coffee, black and bitter, and I took a sip. The heat a welcome jolt. You're off the field for now, he said. Paperwork, then we regroup. This one's high profile. Media is already sniffing. I nodded. Fine by me. I've done my part. The room emptied out, agents moving to their next tasks. I stayed staring at the whiteboard where someone had scribbled Reed's name and a list of charges. My marriage was over, had been for a while, I suppose, but this was the real end. Clarissa thought she'd unmasked me last night, kicking me out like some pathetic loser. Now I was the one peeling back the layers. That photo I'd sent wasn't just a jab, it was the truth. Me, the real me, the man she'd never bothered to see. She'd call again, I knew it, and maybe I'd answer. But for now, I let the silence settle, the coffee cooling in my hand. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. With a sigh that carried the weight of a dying sun, I settled into the unforgiving embrace of the chair, my gaze drawn to the ominous stack of files Kelly had so carelessly abandoned. Reed's entire existence, the very essence of my relentless pursuit, lay before me, meticulously packaged, awaiting its final interment. A spectral creak from the door shattered the quiet, and Rowan's head, an unwelcome apparition, materialized. Interrogation starting, he rasped, his jaws working furiously on that infernal gum. Valon's in room 3. A curt nod was my only response as I heaved myself from the chair, my boots echoing like a death knell against the cold concrete. We traversed the sterile hallway, a grim procession past hunched figures hunched over glowing laptops and evidence bags brimming with shattered lives. The interrogation chambers, those oppressive gray cubicles with their one-way glass and chairs brutally bolted to the floor, loomed ahead. I halted at the viewing pane, my eyes piercing the deceptive barrier. Reed, diminished and pathetic, was shackled to the table, his customary bespoke suit replaced by a coarse jumpsuit. The swagger that defined him had vanished, leaving only a greasy mop of hair and eyes that darted like a trapped rat. Agent Torres, a figure of unsettling calm, was already within, flipping through a file as if perusing a shopping list. "You've a great deal to confess, Reed," Torres began, his voice a steady, unwavering drone. "Let's hear it all." Reed lurched forward, the metallic lament of his cuffs a symphony of desperation. "I'll talk," he blurted too quickly, "but you must offer me a deal. I am not the true prize here." Torres remained unperturbed, a statue of implacability. "You are the one ensnared. Begin your confession, and we shall discern your worth. Reed swallowed, a visible struggle, then unleashed his pathetic narrative. It's Clarissa. She knew about the accounts, orchestrated their very creation, the jewels, the vehicle. She relentlessly pushed for them, insisting on an appearance of legitimacy. My fists clenched, a silent testament to the fury that raged within. He wove a tapestry of deceit, poorly executed. Clarissa, utterly oblivious to the intricacies of money laundering, could scarcely manage her own paltry finances. Yet Reed pressed on, spinning his fabricated tale. She possesses a safe deposit box downtown. Investigate it, and you shall unearth the irrefutable proof. Torres jotted a cryptic note, then fixed his gaze on Reed. We shall examine all claims. Anything further? Reed, now visibly eager, nodded. The villa, she chose it, declared it our sanctuary. She is complicit in every facet. I recoiled from the glass, my jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Rowan raised an eyebrow, a silent acknowledgement of the unfolding spectacle. He's truly desperate, he observed, casting her to the wolves to preserve his own wretched hide. Indeed, I muttered, it will avail him nothing. I harbored no illusions of Clarissa's complete innocence. She had eagerly accepted the illicit gifts, flaunted them with brazen disregard, and allowed Reed to insinuate himself into our lives. But she was no architect of grand schemes, merely a victim of her own rapacious desires, blinded by a misplaced devotion to her so-called soulmate. The Bureau, I knew, would swiftly unearth the truth. The paper trail, stark and undeniable, already implicated her. A staggering $140,000 in assets, inextricably linked to her, all sourced from Reed's tainted fortune. The jewels she adorned herself with at lavish gatherings, the luxury car gracing our driveway, that villa she so boastfully described to her sister over the phone, it was more than sufficient to ensnare her, even if she remained ignorant of the full extent of the charade. Driven by an urgent need for air, I retreated to the briefing room. My phone vibrated, a stark intrusion. Not Clarissa this time, but Mike, my lawyer. I answered, my words clipped. What is it? His voice was all business. She's requesting an audience with you. Clarissa called my office from the station. She claims it's urgent. I massaged my temple, a headache threatening to erupt. She's in holding, I asked. Yes, Mike confirmed. Not yet formally charged, but they are digging. She's terrified, desperate to speak. A moment of profound silence hung between us. You are under no obligation, he offered. She is no longer your burden. He spoke the truth, yet a vestige of our 17 years together, a phantom limb of connection, compelled me. Arrange it, I commanded. I shall go. The call ended, and I slumped back into the chair, my gaze fixed on the files. Reed, still in that room, spewed his pathetic lies, a desperate attempt to claw his way from the abyss. The safe deposit box, I wagered my very truck, was a brazen fabrication, but the villa, that was undeniably real. We had traced it weeks prior, a $2 million property nestled in Mykonos, acquired through a labyrinthine shell company under Reed's control. Clarissa, deluded, believed it a token of undying affection, not a front for illicit gains. She had plastered pictures online, radiating oblivious joy. Now it was damning evidence, her name emblazoned on the deeds, probation at the very least. Perhaps worse, she was now ensnared, caught in the intricate net I had meticulously woven for him. An hour later, Mike's text delivered the chilling details. Bureau conference room, 2 p.m. I spent the intervening time meticulously sifting through the evidence, double-checking every lead from the house. The burner phone yielded a damning log of calls to Reed's contacts. The cache of cash, each bill meticulously marked with traceable serial numbers, was irrefutable. By the time I departed for the meeting, my mind was a pristine slate. I drove to the station alone, the city's cacophony a dull roar around me, blaring horns, rushing masses. The building, a stark monolith of concrete and glass, felt frigid within, An agent, impassive, guided me to the designated room, a beige box containing a table and 2 chairs. I waited. The door creaked open and Clarissa entered, unbound yet utterly shattered. Her hair was a tangled mess, her eyes swollen and raw, her silk robe replaced by ill-fitting jeans and a sweatshirt. She froze upon seeing me, her mouth opening, then closing. "Sit," I commanded, inclining my head toward the chair. She complied, movement slow and hesitant, as if uncertain of her own footing. "They're saying I'm involved," she began, her voice a fragile whisper. "I didn't know, I swear I didn't." I offered no reply, simply observed her. She fidgeted, then leaned forward. "You did this, didn't you? The raid, the arrest, it's you." I nodded once, a single definitive gesture. "Yes." Her eyes widened, tears welling. "Why didn't you tell me," she demanded, "who you truly are?" I leaned back, my voice measured and steady. "You never asked," I stated. "You never cared." And there it was, the unvarnished truth, stark and simple. She stared, tears now streaming freely, yet I remained unmoved. This was her agonizing undoing. I had merely ignited the fuse. The conference room felt like a freezer, the air heavy with the stale scent of aged carpet and weak coffee. Clarissa sat opposite me, her hands twisting in a desperate knot on the table, tears streaking down her face. She seemed shrunken, smaller than I remembered, as if the past 24 hours had distilled her into a stranger. "Why didn't you tell me who you really were?" she had asked, her voice fracturing with every word. My answer had been a blunt instrument. You never asked. You never cared. It wasn't cruel, merely factual. 17 years, and she had never once probed beyond the superficial, never questioned my prolonged absences or the secrets concealed behind that locked office door. Now here we were, separated by a table in a sterile bureau building, the life we had painstakingly constructed in tatters. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve, a loud sniffle escaping her. "I cared," she insisted, yet the words sounded hollow, as if she herself doubted their veracity. I didn't know it was this. FBI raids? You were supposed to be an accountant." Her voice rose, culminating in a near shriek, as if I had played a cruel trick. I didn't flinch. "I told you I worked for the government," I calmly countered. "You chose to fill in the blanks, didn't you? You didn't want to hear more." She shook her head violently as if to dislodge the unwelcome truth. "That's not fair," she muttered. "You hid it. You lied." I leaned forward then, just a fraction, my hands flat on the table. "I didn't lie," I stated. "I protected you, kept you out of it, until you let him in." Her face crumbled at the unspoken accusation. Reed's name didn't even require utterance. She knew precisely whom I meant. "I didn't know what he was," she whispered, her gaze fixed on her clasped hands. "He was kind to me. He listened. You were always distant." Distant. The word struck me, but without pain. She wasn't wrong. I had been absent often, late nights, unexplained trips, the impenetrable walls I had erected to compartmentalize my work. But I had tried. I had repaired the house, paid the bills, endured her endless trivial narratives about her friends. She had simply ceased to see it, ceased to see me. "You craved a soulmate," I observed, my voice steady. "You found one." She began to weep harder, great, racking sobs that convulsed her shoulders. "I didn't intend for this," she choked between gasps. "The money, the things, I thought they were merely gifts. I didn't know it was illegal." I believed her for the most part. Clarissa lacked the intellectual capacity to orchestrate a money laundering operation. She would fail a simple math test before she could conceal millions. But she had taken it all regardless. The jewelry, the car, that villa she so brazenly flaunted. Greed had blinded her, not brilliance. "They're saying I could go to jail," she continued, her wet, desperate eyes seeking mine. "You have to help me, please." I remained motionless, my resolve unyielding. "I cannot," I stated simply. You are implicated now. They possess the evidence, your name on accounts, on property. You accepted his money. She shook her head again, frantically. But I didn't know. You know I didn't. Her voice escalated, echoing off the beige walls. I allowed a beat of silence, letting her words hang in the air, then offered, "They will ascertain the truth. If you are innocent, you will walk free. If not." I trailed off, shrugging. She stared at me as if I had physically struck her. "You're not even going to try?" she asked, her voice shrinking once more. "After everything? Everything." 17 years of shared dinners, bitter quarrels, quiet mornings. The time she had laughed at my dreadful cooking, the way she would curl up beside me on the couch. It flashed through my mind, swift and sharp, yet it altered nothing. "You told me to leave," I reminded her, meeting her gaze. "No papers needed. I did as you wished." She flinched as if my words had cut her. Perhaps they had. "I didn't mean it like this," she mumbled, tears dripping onto the table. "I was angry. I was foolish. I didn't think." She stopped, choking on a sob. The silence settled, an impenetrable shroud. There was nothing more to say. The door opened and a young agent, close-cropped hair, clipboard in hand, stepped in. "Time's up," he announced, glancing at me. "She's due back in holding." Clarissa looked at him, then back at me, panic flaring in her eyes. "Wait," she pleaded, reaching across the table, her trembling fingers brushing mine, cold and shaky. "Please don't let them take me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I withdrew my hand slowly but firmly. "I cannot mend this," I told her. "You made your choices." The agent stepped closer, gesturing for her to rise. She did, wobbly, her face a grotesque mask of tears and mascara. As he let her out, she turned back one last time. "I didn't know you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I should have. I didn't." The door clicked shut behind her, plunging the room into silence once more. I sat there, staring at the empty chair, her words rattling in my head. She didn't know me. She was right. But I had known her, every laugh, every sigh, every time she had looked past me as if I were invisible. 17 years, and she had never truly seen me, not until now, when it was irrevocably too late. I rose, my chair scraping against the floor. The agent at the door offered a curt nod, and I walked out into the cold gray hallway. My phone buzzed. Mike again. "She's a wreck. You good?" I texted back a swift, "Yeah." And I was, not happy, not sad, just done. Clarissa sought forgiveness, a lifeline, but I had none to offer. Not out of malice, but out of brutal honesty. She had constructed this ruin with Reed, brick by painstaking brick, and I had simply raised it. Now she would face the aftermath. I walked back to the warehouse, the lingering weight of her tears still upon me, yet lighter than before. She saw me now at last. A pity it took this to make it so. I left the station and drove back to the warehouse, the city humming around me as the afternoon sun climbed higher. The air in the truck was warm, the heater rattling its familiar protest, but I kept the window cracked anyway, letting the cool breeze cut through. My hands were steady on the wheel, my mind replaying that meeting with Clarissa, her tears, her shaky voice, the way she had reached for me as if I could pluck her from the chasm she had dug. "I'm sorry," she had repeated over and over, as if those words could unravel the intricate tapestry of consequences. They couldn't. I felt no remorse, not truly. She had made her bed, and now she lay in it. I was merely the one who had illuminated the stark reality of her choices. Back at the warehouse, the team was still immersed in the meticulous sorting of evidence, tables groaning under the weight of countless boxes and bags. Rowan waved me over, his gum snapping loudly. "Valon's sentencing set," he announced, handing me a folder. "Court pushed it through fast, 22 years. Racketeering, fraud, conspiracy, done deal." I flipped it open, scanning the pages. Reed had attempted to bargain, pointing fingers wildly at Clarissa and anyone else he could conjure, but the evidence was too formidable. My evidence. Bank records, wiretapped calls, witnesses who had crumbled and flipped. 3 years of my life, distilled into the swift, decisive strike of a judge's gavel. "Good," I stated, closing the folder. "He's out." "What about her?" Rowan inquired, leaning against the table. I shrugged. 3 years probation plus some financial ethics class they're forcing her to take. No jail. He whistled softly. Lucky break. Thought she'd get more with all that cash tied to her name. I nodded but offered no further comment. The $140,000 in illicit gifts, the jewelry, the car, the villa, her name was undeniably linked to it all. Yet the Bureau understood she wasn't the architect, merely the fool who had greedily swallowed the bait. 3 years of probation was a lenient sentence, considering she had narrowly avoided a far worse fate. Still, her life was irrevocably shattered. The media had already latched onto the story. Mute televisions in the warehouse displayed the lurid headlines, "Wife of undercover FBI agent caught in high-profile takedown." My name was there too, though I had explicitly forbidden interviews. Reporters had relentlessly called all day, leaving voicemails I deleted without a second thought. I craved no spotlight, never had. Witnessing Reed's downfall and Clarissa's world crumble was sufficient. Justice, for me, required no camera crew. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and sat down, letting the ambient noise of the room recede into a distant hum. Keller approached, his glasses perched precariously on his nose. "The press is devouring this," he observed, gesturing toward the screens. "Are you certain you don't wish to make a statement? It would reflect favorably on the Bureau." I shook my head. "Let them spin their tales. I am done speaking." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. You've earned that." He placed a new file on the table, thicker than Reed's. "Next case," he stated. "Whenever you're ready." I didn't open it, merely tapped it with my finger. "Soon," I replied. He walked away, leaving me with the warehouse's low thrum and my own swirling thoughts. Clarissa's face continued to materialize in my mind. Not the weeping wreck from the conference room, but the way she had looked last night, laughing as she dismissively told me to leave. No divorce papers needed. So certain of her victory then. Now she was on probation, her erstwhile lover incarcerated, her name splattered across every news channel. The house was gone too, seized by the feds, slated for auction along with the villa and every other tangible trace of Reed's corrupting influence. She had moved in with her sister, I heard, to a cramped apartment. No more fancy cars, no more exotic trips. Just a small dwelling and a court-ordered class on the perils of financial naivete. I stood, stretching my legs, and walked to the evidence tables. The contents of the house were laid out. My old laptop, the valuables from the safe, even a framed photograph that had once adorned our hallway. Clarissa and I at the beach, smiling as if we truly belonged together. I picked it up, my thumb tracing the smooth glass. That was a lifetime ago, back when she still looked at me as if I mattered. I set it back down, face first, and turned away. No point in clinging to ghosts. The past was irrevocably done, and I was not one to dwell. My phone buzzed. Mike, my lawyer, again. "Press keeps calling. You sure no comment?" I texted back simply, "Sure." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, and I pocketed the phone. The warehouse was quieting now, agents departing, the day winding to a close. Rowan approached again, tossing his gum wrapper into a nearby trash can. "Beer?" he asked. "Team's hitting the bar later. Celebrate." I considered it. A cold bottle, boisterous laughter, a chance to shed the lingering residue of it all. "Yeah," I said. "I'm in." We left the warehouse as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of fiery orange above the city. The bar was a dive a few blocks away, all sticky floors and flickering neon signs. The team was already there. Torres, a couple of others, even Keller had shown up for a round. They raised their glasses as I walked in, cheering as if I had won something monumental. "To the man who took down Valon," Rowan bellowed, and I allowed myself a small, fleeting smile. The beer was cold, the chatter loud, and for the first time in months I felt an exhilarating lightness. No more hiding, no more pretense. Reed was gone, Clarissa was out, and I was still standing. The night stretched on, the bar slowly emptying. I remained until last call, nursing a second beer, watching the team laugh and swap stories. This was my life now. Work, purpose, people who understood. Clarissa had her sentencing, her probation, her sister's couch. I had this, and it was enough. I paid my tab, stepped outside, and breathed in the cool night air. The headlines would fade, the calls would cease. Tomorrow I would open that new file. Tonight I simply walked home, the city quiet around me, feeling like myself again. The morning after the bar, I awoke in my new apartment, a small downtown space of bare walls and unpacked boxes. The bed was merely a mattress on the floor, but it was mine, devoid of any trace of Clarissa or the life we had shared. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, assaulting my eyes, and I groaned, rolling over to check my phone. It was 7:30 a.m., later than I had intended to sleep. A text from Rowan sat unread. "Good night, huh? Team's still buzzing." I smirked, tossing the phone aside. Last night had been a blur of noise and laughter, the team treating me like some kind of hero. It had felt good, but now it was back to stark reality. I rose, my joints stiff from the mattress, and shuffled to the kitchen. The coffee maker was still entombed in a box somewhere, so I resorted to boiling water in a pot and dumping in instant grounds. It tasted like dirt, but it served its purpose. I leaned against the counter, sipping slowly, gazing out the window at the city stirring to life. Cars blared below, people rushed along the sidewalks. My old life, the house, Clarissa, the endless pretense, was gone. The feds had seized it all. The house sold at auction, the villa in Mykonos, too. The money, I heard, had gone into some victim fund. It didn't matter to me. I didn't want it back. My phone buzzed again. Keller this time. Office 9 Sao. Promotions official. I set the mug down, a small grin tugging at my lips. Head of covert financial crimes. After the Reed takedown, they had fast-tracked it. More responsibility, more cases, a bigger desk. I had earned it, undoubtedly, yet it still felt surreal. 17 years of meticulously concealing my true identity, and now I was stepping forward, into the open. Well, as open as this clandestine job allowed. I showered quickly, the water lukewarm, and pulled on a clean shirt and jeans. No suit today, just a meeting, no field work. I grabbed my keys and headed out. The bureau office was a 20-minute drive, a gleaming edifice of glass and steel humming with quiet energy. I parked in the garage, nodding at the guard who waved me through. Inside, the place smelled of paper and disinfectant, the same sterile scent as always. Keller was waiting in his office, a corner room with a panoramic view of the skyline. "Sit," he instructed, pointing to a chair. I complied, and he slid a badge across the desk. My name, my new title etched beneath it. "Head of Covert," he stated, leaning back. "You're running the show now. Pick your team, set your cases. Budgets are yours too." I picked up the badge, its weight solid and reassuring in my hand. "Thanks," I said, meaning it. He nodded, no fuss. "Don't screw it up." The team threw a small celebration later, coffee and donuts in the break room, a few perfunctory pats on the back. Rowan grinned, holding up a cruller. "To the boss," he declared, and the others laughed. Torres was there, a couple of new faces too. They had all heard about Reed, the raid, the headlines. "You're a legend now," one of the rookies said, half joking. I shrugged it off. "Just did the job," I told him, grabbing a donut. But inside, it resonated. This was respect, real and earned. Not the quiet nods I had received as Clarissa's husband, the man who fixed the sink and mowed the lawn. This was different. After the break room cleared out, I settled into my new office, larger than my old cubicle with a window and a desk that didn't wobble. The file Keller had given me yesterday was waiting, a tangible promise of new beginnings. I opened it, flipping through pages detailing a new target, some crypto scammer out west. Early stages of a case, but it felt good to dig in, to have something fresh, something unequivocally mine. I began jotting notes, my pen scratching against the paper, the rhythm familiar. This was my life now. Work, purpose, a clear path. No more late-night quarrels with Clarissa. No more pretending to be less than I was. My phone buzzed again as I worked. Clarissa's name this time. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. It had been days since the conference room, since her tears and apologies. I had heard she had moved in with her sister to a cramped place across town. Probation had begun. Her name still surfaced in the news now and then. I opened the message. "Can we talk, please? I need to say something." I stared at it, the words simple yet heavy. Part of me yearned to delete it, to let it vanish like all the other remnants of our past. But another part, the part that remembered 17 years, made me pause. I didn't reply, simply set the phone face down and returned to the file. The day stretched on. Meetings, paperwork, a quick lunch from the vending machine. By evening, the office was quiet, just me and the soft hum of the lights. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city skyline, now a glittering tapestry against the darkening sky. The promotion, the team, the new case. It was a life I hadn't imagined a year ago, trapped in that house with a wife who saw through me. Now I was here, building something real. Clarissa's text gnawed at me, though. I picked up the phone again, rereading it once more. I need to say something. What was left to say? She had said plenty. Sorry, scared, shocked. I had heard it all. I deleted the message, my fingers steady as I hit the button. No reply, no callback. She had made her choices, Reed, the money, kicking me out. I had made mine, walking away, tearing it all down, starting anew. The trash can icon blinked, then faded. Done. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and locked the office door behind me. The hallway was empty, my footsteps echoing as I headed to the garage. Outside, the air was cool, the city alive with the restless energy of night. My truck sputtered to life, and I drove home, the shrinking skyline in my rearview mirror. This was the aftermath, hers in ruins, mine rising, and I was good with that. The new office felt like a fresh start. All clean lines and quiet corners, a world away from the cluttered cubicle I had hunched in for years. It was a Monday morning, a week after the promotion, and I walked in with a coffee from the shop downstairs. Real stuff, not the instant junk I'd been choking down at the apartment. The view from my window stretched across the city, the skyline sharp against a pale blue sky. My desk was already piled with papers, that crypto scammer case staring up at me from an open folder. I set the coffee down, hung my jacket on the chair, and got to work. This was it, the real goodbye to everything I had left behind. I flipped through the file, my pen scratching notes as I went. The target was some slick guy out of California, moving dirty cash through fake NFT sales. Millions washing in and out like a relentless tide. It was early days, just leads and hunches, but it felt good to dig in. My phone stayed quiet, no buzz from Clarissa or anyone else. Deleting her last message had closed that door for good, and I didn't miss the oppressive weight of it. The clock on the wall ticked past 9:01 a.m., the office slowly awakening around me, phones ringing, footsteps in the hall. Rowan poked his head in, grinning. "Boss man settled?" he asked, tossing a stress ball my way. I caught it, tossed it back. "Getting there," I said. He lingered, leaning on the doorframe. "Team's ready when you are. Got some new blood itching to chase this crypto clown." I nodded, tapping the file. "Briefing at 10. Bring coffee." He laughed, saluting as he left. I liked this, running the show, picking the plays. It wasn't about power, just purpose. For years, I had been the guy in the shadows, tracking Reed, hiding who I was from Clarissa. Now I was out front, no more masks. I sipped the coffee, the warmth spreading through me, and kept reading. The case was messy, shell companies, encrypted wallets, but I had cracked worse. Reed was proof of that. Mid-morning, the team filed in. Rowan, Torres, 2 rookies with eager eyes. I stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, laying it all out. "Target's name is Ethan Bryce," I began, writing it large. 34, lives in LA, runs a front called Bryce Digital Arts. We've got him tied to 8 million in suspect transfers, but it's deeper. I met their gazes. I want eyes on his accounts, his contacts, his habits. They nodded, taking notes, the room buzzing with focused energy. Rowan smirked. Another read, huh? I shook my head. Smarter, quieter. We move slow, build it tight. The briefing stretched for an hour, questions flying, plans forming. By the end, I felt that old fire kicking in, sharp, steady, alive. Lunch was a sandwich at my desk, crumbs falling on the file as I cross-checked leads. The afternoon blurred into calls and emails, pulling strings to secure warrants, tapping sources for dirt on Bryce. It was steady work, the kind that kept my head clear. No room for Clarissa's voice, her tears, her "I'm sorry" echoing back. She was gone, probation, her sister's couch, a life I no longer fit into. The house was sold, the villa too, all traces of us wiped clean. I didn't check the news much, but I knew the headlines had faded. Wife of undercover agent was old gossip now. Good. Around 5:00 p.m., I leaned back, stretching my neck. The office was emptying out, the hum of the day winding down. I grabbed my coffee mug, empty now, and walked to the break room to rinse it. Torres was there, fiddling with the vending machine. "Good first day, boss?" he asked, kicking the thing until a candy bar dropped. "Yeah," I said, running water over the mug. "Solid start." He nodded, ripping open the wrapper. "Heard Valon's appealing. Won't stick, though." I shrugged, drying my hands. "Let him try. He's done." Torres grinned, heading out, and I stood there a minute, the sink dripping behind me. Reed could appeal all he wanted. 22 years wasn't budging. My work was ironclad. Back in the office, I packed up, file in my bag, jacket on, lights off. The city glowed outside, all orange and gold as the sun dipped low. I locked the door and took the stairs down, the echo of my steps filling the quiet. In the garage, my truck waited, the same old sputter as I started it. The drive home was smooth, traffic thinning out, the radio playing some song I didn't know. My apartment was dark when I got in, just the hum of the fridge greeting me. I dropped my bag, kicked off my boots, and poured a glass of water. No beer tonight, just calm. I stood by the window looking out at the street below. People walked dogs, cars rolled by. Life kept moving. Clarissa's words from months ago floated up. No divorce papers needed. Just leave. I had left. The house, the lies, the man she had boxed me into. She had laughed then, thinking she had won, but I had walked away with more than she would ever know. Dignity, purpose, a life that fit. The warrant I had served wasn't just for Reed, it was for me too, cutting free. The weight of her respect. I didn't need a lawyer to sign it off. I had done it myself. The glass was cool in my hand as I took a sip, the city lights flickering outside. The crypto case sat in my bag, a new beginning waiting. Another con man, another chase, another chance to do what I was good at. I smiled, small but real, and set the glass down. The mattress wasn't much, but it would do. I lay back, arms behind my head, the ceiling blank above me. No ghosts here, just me, the job, the road ahead. Clarissa had her goodbye, messy and loud. This was mine, quiet and sure, and it felt right. Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click, enjoy, and thank you.